Hey everyone, Uncle Tickles here, back from Ice and FireCon, safe and sound, and this was probably my favorite year yet. I rave about the event all the time, but I just want to mention it again because the organizers outdid themselves. There was a band, a new musical, David G. Peterson, the creator of the Dothraki language, the sign language from Dune, and High Valyrian as well, was there, which was amazing to hear him talk. And something you may not associate with A Song of Ice and Fire, but there were the world's best empanadas. And not only were they the world's best empanadas, but they were cooked by the Earth's sexiest bakers. It sounds like I'm making this up, but it's real. That actually happened. Um, but speaking of the organizers, today's guest is the founder of the event, Tara Lynne. We're going to be talking about step parenting. And this episode was recorded in February, largely because, as you're about to learn, she's a busy woman, wears lots of hats. Organizing Ice and FireCon is just one of the many things she does when she's not doing her 9 to 5. She's also a published author, host of multiple webcasts, a gamer, kind of, and most importantly, a kick-ass stepmom. So in a second, we're going to give you the full interview, edited a little bit with Tara. And before you get that, please head over to our Instagram page at the New Dad Pod and check out some pics from this year's Ice and FireCon, as well as some pics of our guest today. Don't forget, New Dad is still looking for our first patron on Patreon, so head over there and be number one at something in your life today. So let's go tickle monsters. I'm not going to make you wait any longer. Our interview with Tara is coming up, but first, Probcost, take us away. Hello. Welcome back to New Dad. This is your host, Uncle Tickles. I'm here with Tara Lynne. She is a woman who wears a lot of hats. Today, primarily, we're going to be talking about her role as a step parent, a fairly new role. But Tara, introduce yourself to our audience and tell them a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I'm Tara Lynne. I can be found literally everywhere on the web at a Geek Saga. I mean, I'm talking, that's my tag everywhere: Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, even TikTok, lols. So that's where you can find me. I am an author. I've published 2 books. Actually, weirdly enough, this month, February 2022, is the 5th anniversary of my second book, which is called How to Start Living in the Zombie Apocalypse. So I've got this whole shtick plan for this month, starting probably this weekend, with where I'm just going to be promoting that because, oh my God, it's been 5 years since I published this book. I also organize Ice and FireCon, which is how you and I know each other.
That's right.
Which is a game of
the virtual shirt right now.
Oh my gosh, it's so weird because I almost put that on. And then I was
that
like,
would have been awkward.
Yeah, then I was like, no, like I'm gonna wear something not Ice and Fire.
There you go. I did it for us.
So yeah, I organized Ice and FireCon, which is Game of Thrones Song of Ice and Fire convention. We were actually the first one of its kind in the United States. Our first year was 2013. So this year is actually our 10th year. April of this year is our 10th convention year. It is not our 10th year in person. Obviously, we've been virtual the past 2 years, but we are back in person finally in April of this year. So I'm very excited about that.
Well, congratulations
on
the 5-year and the 10-year anniversaries.
Gosh, and I can't wait to be back in person again, let me tell you.
It's going to be huge. It's going to be big, really big.
And I also do my own, I basically do webcasts, live webcasts, which I then turn into podcasts. So you can view my 2 webcasts. One is called the Geek Saga webcast, on my YouTube channel, and the other is Sagas and Sass, which is a genre lit webcast. And they do get turned into podcasts, but they're also live. So yes, like you said, many, many hats. And those are just like my extracurriculars.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's not even you have a full-time job that pays the bills as well.
Yes,
That
I
we haven't even
do. I
mentioned.
do. I
So that's
do.
on top of everything. That's incredible.
Yeah. Yeah.
Enough to feel someone lazy.
I no, don't. I sleep very little and I'm stressed all the time.
Yeah, no. Yeah, I do. Even from afar, I can sense the level of stress sometimes with all the stuff you're juggling. And if you're a listener of New Dad, you've heard us talk about Ice and Fire Con quite glowingly. It was 2019. It was one of our favorite things of 2019 that we did, that we've had a number of Ice and Fire Con related content creators on New Dad and the movie club. So you guys might be familiar with some of the talk about that. Question about the zombie apocalypse book. Is that just pretty straightforward? Is that just a guide of how to survive the zombie apocalypse? And if so, do you want to tell us a little bit more about that book and how that came to be?
So it is not a guide. It is a novel. It is a first person novel. It's actually kind of funny because I started writing it in November 2013. And originally it was like every chapter started with a rule about how to survive the zombie apocalypse. I had never seen Zombieland. So I was like, I saw Zombieland, I think like a year later. And at this point I hadn't even finished writing the book. I'd started writing it during National Novel Writing Month, November 2013. So I was like, oh shoot, I can't do it this way. So I had to kind of change how I did things. But yeah, it is a first person novel. It's honestly kind of very, if you know me in person, it's very me. It's very snarky and sarcastic at times. And I want to say it's dark, but in like a funny way. But even that might not be true. It's hard for me to separate myself from it,
For sure.
So,
I can't imagine. Well,
yeah, it took me about it was 2013. It took me close to 3 years to finish it. And then about probably 8 or 9 months to get it through several rounds of beta readers and edits and everything. So it was published February 17th, 2017.
I mean, that's incredible because that's become kind of a cliche. People talk about writing their novel, right? You did it, and not only did it, but you got it published. So if you're listening, go out and pick up that book. I know I'm probably going to end up. I imagine you can get it on Amazon or.
Yeah, it's on Amazon, as Kindle or paperback, and you can also get it online, Barnes and Noble, as a paperback. So it's that's where it's available.
Awesome.
And also, like, honestly, if you follow me if you follow me on literally any social media this month, I'll be posting the links constantly. But I also have some new content that should be coming out. I'm hopefully this weekend, but I've been working on some little prequel stories. I'm thinking about actually publishing them as an anthology if I write enough of them. But yeah, so I'm going to be posting some excerpts and whatnot of
just not busy enough.
I'm not busy enough. So
put another thing on that plate. That's right.
Of course, I'm writing in my free time. Free time. What is that?
Well, I said, we're going to focus on your role as a step parent today. How long have you been a step parent? Because it's fairly new for you, right?
So I mean, legally,
yeah,
months,
months, right?
But I've been living
in practice,
I've been living with Dean and the kids. It was actually a year in early January, 2021 was when I moved out to California from South Carolina. So, and I've been back and forth quite a bit. I do go back to South Carolina usually for weeks at a time, just because I still have my home and my friends and my family there, and I really miss it. California's fun, but I really miss it. And I'm only out here because one of the kids is still in high school. So
right. Well, and that, I was gonna say that was a huge move for you. I remember kind of seeing you go through that, and and thinking, wow, that's a big step, and being really proud that it was something that you did, and you seem to be very happy with it. How many kids are you the step parent of, and what are their ages? You said one's in high school.
Yeah, so there's just 2.
Uh-huh.
Ben is going to be 21 tomorrow. I'm
That
very
is
excited
that
about
is
I am very excited about this. Like, we've been out, like, I personally am not his legal parent. I am not a legal, I've not adopted them, right?
right.
But, like, we've been out, and, like, there's places we've been where they allow, like, your parent to buy you drinks or whatever. So, like, when we went to New Orleans and we got married back in December, Ben was able to come out with us and drink with us. Uh,
That's
most
awesome.
places, honestly. Yeah,
Right.
so it was more like once you got in a place, they didn't care, I think, who was buying the drinks. So
Correct.
as long
Yeah.
as the actual parent was there. So I
Right.
definitely, bought him some drinks. He and I had some late nights together, just the 2 of us, which was fun.
That's too
Weird, a little
hilarious.
bit weird, but a little bit fun. A lot
No,
fun.
that's
A little
awesome.
bit weird, a lot fun.
Well, here's the thing. One thing that's drawn me to Ice and Fire Con and to you as a person is, you have a clear love for fun, and you like to take things, I think, to a level and add enthusiasm and extra levels of flair, and you're creative, there's themes. So I imagine, again, you as a step parent, probably very likable to your stepchildren. Although we'll get into, there's some challenges in stepping into that role. Do you guys have anything really cool or fun planned for the 21st, or is it kind of just pretty low key?
Well, it's low key for right now because it's his, I believe, first official anniversary with his girlfriend too. So
Oh,
we're
shout
we're
outs to Ben and his girlfriend.
yeah,
Lots of
so we're
anniversaries all across the board. So what do you guys have planned other than that? Or is that it?
well, we're taking the 2 of them out to dinner on Saturday. I his girlfriend is younger. I
Oh,
believe
yes.
she's 19.
Okay.
She could be 20. I don't
Mhm.
know for sure. Like I spent tons of time with her, but I've never really asked about her
Right.
age or anything. That's weird.
For
So
sure.
yeah, it'll be laid back. But I told Dean, I think it was like a last weekend or whatever when we were first talking to Ben about making plans for this weekend for his birthday. I said, that we're taking him to Vegas sometime within the next few months, right? We live 3.5 hours from Vegas. We are
Oh my God.
going,
Yeah.
and we've all been together, but that was last summer.
It's a little
And it
different.
was,
Yeah.
yeah. And we didn't, we were just, it was a family trip. I mean, the youngest was there too. So
Well,
yeah.
and I
So
feel
this
like if
time,
if he was drinking with you guys in New Orleans, right? Like that's a pretty. I mean, that that probably is pretty much like you got to see, you guys got to hang out, and like you said, you guys had a late night. So um perhaps, yeah, doing like the big 21st thing is not
yeah.
such
And
such a huge deal.
he's
Big
not
drinker.
really a big drinker either.
Good for Ben. I like the sound of
So
Ben. The more and more I hear about
now
him, I like him.
granted, he hasn't been 21. So,
Right. True.
and
True.
he
True.
he also didn't go to college. He got a really good job kind of he graduated high school the end of 2019, and it was one of those back and forth, like, do I want to go to community college, whatever. And then the pandemic happened and turned everything on its head. And he
Mhm.
decided he didn't want to go to college kind of because of that. So he ended up getting a really good job instead and is in a
Beautiful.
union and, just kind of gets to live his life. But because he didn't go to school, I feel like he's never gonna have unless I eventually convince him to go to Ice and Fire Con or Dragon Con, he's never gonna have like that.
That experience.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, well, you know what? Some people would happily trade that experience for their college debt, so he won't have that.
Yes.
So that's kind of nice.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
That's
That's
kind
a
of
big
nice.
plus
Yeah,
because
huge, huge
there ain't no
plus
money here for that.
for sure, for sure. And then you had mentioned there's another in high school,
Mhm.
and
Yeah, so Camden is 15. He turned 15 in November. He is a little over halfway through his sophomore year.
so they are your new stepchildren. Now, the reason I wanted you to come on for this episode, in large part, was not just the fact that I admire you as a person, but I thought your journey to being a stepmom was kind of interesting because as I mentioned, we're friends on social media. I see, some of the things you say, and I remember at one point, it seeming very clear to me, and being an outsider looking in, two things. One, you were not really thinking you would ever be married again, and it didn't look like you ever were looking to be a parent. Is that accurate?
Oh, for sure, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So I'm not gonna go into any sort of detail about my
Totally.
first marriage. It wasn't listen, it wasn't bad. And I am
Right.
still actually very close friends with my ex-husband. So it took some time after we split for us to get to this point. I'm glad we did because we were friends before we got married, but it was just one of those things where after having been married, I had this sort of realization that there was no point in it. Unless you really, in my mind, for a long time, unless you really needed to be married because you needed to be on that other person's insurance, for instance, good reason, or
Right.
because you had kids together and you wanted everything to be copacetic, like legally, because it is a pain, to be honest, not being I guess it might be different if you're both biological parents of a child, but for me, there's been times when it's then like Dean gets a call at work because Cam needs to be picked up from school and I'm not on the list, type of thing.
Right.
So, um, but yeah, it was one of those like I get that it's cool, like other people want it, other people are into it, other people, love being married, but for me it never felt necessary. I could take care of myself,
Right.
you know? Then maybe that's a bad way to put it because it makes it sound like, oh, like you're only getting married because you can't take care of yourself. But for me personally, and again, I do not judge anybody for being married or wanting to be married. Obviously now I can't, haha. But
Right.
previously it's like if you want that, awesome for you. But I kind of felt like I needed to have my own autonomy. And while I understand obviously now that there are relationships and marriages in which you can have that, I hadn't really felt a lot of that in my previous relationships. So,
Would you have classified yourself as like a serial dater? I mean, did you have a lot of single time, or did you kind of go from a lot of relationships to relationships?
it was a lot of relationships to relationships,
Gotcha.
yeah. I never really got the whole dating thing.
Hmm.
I never enjoyed
Like
it.
serial
It
monogamy.
was most of the people that I ended up in relationships with were people I was friends with for a while beforehand.
Gotcha.
So there's serial monogamy, but also not even like jumping into a relationship, but ending up in a relationship with somebody I had known for a while. I mean, like I said, my ex-husband and we actually went to high school together. So we
Right.
were not friends per se in high school, but we were friends after high school and friends for years before we ended up together. And I mean, and this leading into this current relationship, Dean and I were also friends for, gosh, a year and a half or so before we started actually dating. So,
Right. And is kind of interesting too, because was the friendship, yeah, I imagine it existed outside of the video game Red Dead Redemption, but it seems like a lot of it, centered around that. Or is that just a misconception as me as an outsider?
um, I mean, yes and no.
Okay, yeah.
So we met at San Diego Comic-Con 2018. It was a really weird situation where I was there, I was there as a pro, and Chloe, also from Ice and Fire Con,
Yep.
was also there as a pro because she was there to speak on the Game of Thrones panel with me. We needed people to speak that year. For the first time, we had open spots on our panel, and I was like, okay, well, I know who I'm asking.
Right.
Chloe first and foremost. So Chloe came with me and roomed with me, and the Friday night of San Diego Comic-Con that year, one of my coworkers, quote unquote, from a website I used to write for, the Geeky, had a pass to an industry party. it was a Lost in Space party, actually. And she felt sick and she didn't want to go. So she asked me if I wanted the pass instead. And I said, yeah. And of course, I couldn't leave Chloe behind. So I put out an APB. Hey, does anybody know, how I can get Chloe into this as well? And a friend of mine was like, oh, yeah. I've got to pass that. I've got an extra person. Fine. So we got in and we're there for a little while. And Dean is there. And she knew Dean from Dragon Con, which is this whole weird roundabout thing because I had never met Dean at Dragon Con, even though we ran in so many of the same circles. I had never met him in person. So Chloe introduced us and we were talking that night and I don't remember if it was that night or the next night, but we started talking about Red Dead and turns out we're both, huge fans of Red Dead, super excited for the new game to come out in October. So it was like, we didn't meet because of it, but we became
bonded over it.
Yeah. I mean, the whole time, like the game, I mean, we bonded over other things prior to that, obviously, because it was several months between Comic-Con and when it came out. But, by the time the game came out, we were already like basically best friends. And then the game came out and it was just like our life was back and forth with each other because neither one of us had many friends that were also playing it. So, and then when Red Dead Online launched at the end of that year, so end of 2018, it was all downhill from there. His son was playing it. His older son, Ben, was playing it as well. So, not only was this like building my friendship with Dean, but I got to know his older kid as well through Red Dead Online. Yeah, it's a really like, you wouldn't expect it, but
yeah. So put gaming in the title of hats that you wear, or gamer, I should say, in the title of hats you wear. I have to ask, how much of choosing New Orleans as a destination to get married had to do with Red Dead Redemption? I'm not trying to make this a Red Dead Redemption podcast, but it's part of the story. You're a stepmother because you married Dean, and in large part, this video game Red Dead Redemption played a part in your love story, which we'll talk about.
So we went to New Orleans for my birthday in 2019, and at that point, he had been apart from his ex-wife for a bit. And let me be very clear, when we first became friends, he was married and, we were just friends.
Right.
Am I allowed to swear on this?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
My dumbass fell completely in love with him, but I'm over here just like, I mean, he's married. Like I'm in love with my best friend. Like, but what am I gonna do about it? Nothing.
And this is your
literally
pattern,
nothing.
because you say you fall for people that you've been friends with.
Yes. Yeah. This is a little bit different though, because I had never fallen for somebody who was already in a relationship or let alone married. Lord. So of course I'm sitting back here just like, I'm totally in love with this dude, but there's nothing I can do about it. It's fine. It's whatever. But so we went to New Orleans in December 2019 for my birthday, and like we had this just amazing trip together. I mean, we had already kind of we'd spent time together a couple months before that, and we knew it was going to happen. At that point, he was apart from his ex-wife, obviously, and we knew that things had happened, were going to happen, whatever. Right. But this was where we were like, okay, we are in a relationship, right? And it was just we literally chose New Orleans I chose New Orleans because I was like, we need to go here and dress up in our Red Dead costumes because it's Saint Denis, right? From Red Dead. Yes. So we need to go here and be those people and do this thing. And of course, he was in total agreement. He loved it. So, when it came time to plan our wedding, he had his parents live in Washington State and Texas. And my family lives in South Carolina. And most of our friends are kind of East Coast based. Yeah. Other than the friends we have here in California are East Coast based. I mean, most of my very close friends are in South Carolina. Right. So it was like, this is a perfect location. It's an amazing city. It's so much fun. Everybody wants to go to New Orleans, right?
Right.
And B, it's, easy for so many of our family and friends to get to, literally minus our California friends and his family in Washington State. So it was just this kind of, obviously we're going to do it in New Orleans. I mean, why not?
Yeah, and for those listeners that aren't familiar, you probably have already gathered, but in the video game, there is a city on the map that is pretty much based on New Orleans. So yeah, and
Oh, it is like
yeah,
modeled after New
yeah,
Orleans. You can find places. I have a whole list on my website. You can find exact houses and stuff and bars, everything that yeah.
we'll kind of rein it back in here a little bit. So you at this point, you and Dean are in a relationship. You've been playing Red Dead with him and his oldest son Ben, who is already a new dad favorite here, and and at some point it becomes pretty clear that this thing is progressing, and you're like, I'm just going to turn my life upside down and I'm going to move across the country and go live with this man and his family. You want to talk about just, I guess, the journey from, hey, this is fun and we're dating, to I'm going to come and live with you and your kids?
Well, it was kind of, we went back and forth a lot,
Right.
honestly. Um, when the first, gosh, I don't know how many months after we started dating, it was kind of like, well, especially after the pandemic started, it was kind of like, well, Camden hasn't even been able to go to school, right? Like he has like one or two friends from middle school, but he hasn't made new friends. He hasn't made a life here, whatever. Uh, and I think that
Moving was possibly on the table if it
Yeah,
wasn't like,
Dean and them moving to the East Coast was very much on the table. What happened was that his divorce took a very long time,
mhm,
because of, I mean, the original thing was COVID. They well, first it was, gosh, without getting into too many details
right,
about
it's delicate.
about how they got separated and everything, she walked out on her family. I
Mhm.
mean, and when I say walked out, imagine like the worst thing you can possibly think of somebody doing.
Yeah, it's
And
juicy.
it's probably, yeah, and I would love to come back in a future episode
No,
after he has
if you can, yeah,
finalized court stuff and she has hopefully moved out of state, and talked about to like actually talk about
1,000%.
this.
If you're ever able to, what we're gonna do is we're gonna do like a live. We're just gonna have you back. We'll
Yeah,
just do like 20 minutes. We'll just give people the hot poop
the
on
real
what
juicy,
actually
real hot.
went down. Yeah.
But I mean, imagine like a Lifetime
Yes.
movie, but times maybe 10.
I know.
And
I told my wife about kind of like the gist of it, and she was like, "You might want to wait to have her on until she could talk about it because it's that juicy." But yeah, no, it's bad. It's bad.
yeah, so and when she walked out, I mean, she walked out. So she wasn't helping pay for any bills. She never paid a penny of child support. And I mean, still to this day hasn't paid a penny of child support. But that's neither here nor there, I guess. Because of everything that was going on with that, there was absolutely no way for him to move their minor child out of
Right.
California.
Yeah.
So it turned, and to be honest, like maybe we could have done the long distance thing a little bit longer than we did, but with the pandemic and everything, it just came to this point where you have to I had to sit down with myself and say, what is more important to me right now? You know, being in this relationship, having this relationship be healthy and happy, and finally really getting to, know these kids, to spend time with them outside of, every couple months I go out there and see them for a couple days, and eh, knowing that he couldn't just pick up and move the way we'd originally hoped for and talked about, was kind of, okay, you know what? I personally can pick up and move. My job has always, the job that I work, my day job, had been remote since that company had been remote since 2012, years before I even joined them. All I have is my pets, and they can go wherever because Dean thankfully owns his home out here. So there were
Right.
no weird rules about coming out here with animals or anything.
Right. So, I mean, how lucky is that? Because I remember my company considering going remote in like 2017 or 2017 or 2018. There was this big sit down, and they were kind of and they were doing it just simply for like cash considerations, really, the overhead of having to rent out an office space. And they ultimately decided they really wanted to keep this office, which in retrospect is, like I'm sure they're kicking themselves over it. The company doesn't even exist anymore, as it is. But yeah, I mean, great for you and your company that you're able to do that. And also great that you guys have this, flexibility. I think we'll talk about this too here in a little bit, but most people, when they come into, when they start their journey as a parent, right? You have 18 years at the very least before your kid is potentially out of the house, and you can start thinking about these, having certain flexible options, and you still have the flexibility to move, when you have a child, but it becomes a lot more complicated. But you come in and you have just, like you said, it's 15, high school, you'll be out in 18, and then you guys can kind of figure out what you want to do, and or if you guys want to stay, that's something you guys can do too.
No.
No.
No, that's
Not
already
happening.
like we have a very specific timeline. Camden graduates high school. Dean gets his pension November of that same year. So we're out.
Boom. Well,
California is really expensive.
yeah, well, again, nice to have that flexibility.
Yes.
In a very short period of time, you go from being someone who's thinking, hey, I don't really foresee marriage as something for me, and I certainly don't see, being a parent. And now now you are married, and you have two stepchildren. So I want to kind of go backwards before we go forwards, and hear a little bit about how your own parents and your own family life perhaps shaped you and the views you had. Now that you're kind of entering this role, and you have kids who you're looking for acceptance, and also in a time where, as you said, their mother walked out on them. I'm sure it's extremely difficult for them. They're going through a lot of different emotions. I can only imagine. So what was it about your own childhood and parents that you kind of drew inspiration on, and at this point, or were able to lean on?
So generally, I mean, just to like walk it back a little, me
Yeah.
not wanting to have kids was always about, honestly, I didn't want to be pregnant, and I didn't want to give birth, and I
Right.
didn't want to deal with a screaming baby. I just I didn't want any of that. There was a brief period of time when I first married my ex-husband where we talked about it. He really wanted kids. I think I still to this day think he wanted them for the wrong reasons. Not going to get into that, but we talked about it, and I said, "Listen, like I am possibly amenable to this, but we got to discuss it in 5 years." Because at that time, I think when we got married, I was, oh God,
Just wait.
27 or 28. I was around there. So not young, but old enough to know that since 15 years old, I'd been like, I don't ever want children. So, for me, it was like, but at the same time, after, with my ex-husband, we had talked about, okay, well, if you don't want to get pregnant, give birth, all that stuff that you just are really just about, to be honest.
Right.
Are you anti-children or anti-kids? Absolutely not. I was one of those people where I was like, we can have foreign exchange students, or I will adopt a kid who's 10 years old, or
Right.
several kids who
Yeah.
are in that 8 to 15 range. I just don't want to deal with the early crying baby thing. I'm sorry. I need my sleep.
Yeah, no, no.
This is
Hey,
also why I adopt dogs who are
yes.
already adult dogs and don't get puppies.
Well, yes, and without and I don't think there's anything wrong with saying that, and I commend you for just being self-aware enough to know that, right? Because I think a lot of people would probably fall into the societal pressures to feel like that's what they need, or even convince themselves, well, hey, if I'm okay with a kid, then why not my own kid, right? I think that's commendable, and how great that you find and maybe even more so, like reinforcing that this is the right person, this is the right scenario for you, right? Because here's
Mhm.
someone that helps you believe in love again, and then also you know has kids, and at the ages they are, I imagine he's probably not interested in having more kids, um
No.
right? So I mean, he's at the home stretch. He sees the light at the tunnel, at the end of the tunnel. He's yeah, he's not trying to go back to the finish line, or
Well,
the start line.
Dean is he loves kids. Now, don't get me wrong. If
Yeah.
something happened
Well,
and
right. Yes.
I'll be honest, it would be on me to be like, mm-mm, no, I still don't
Yeah.
want this. And he would be
Right.
like, are you sure? Because I'm totally okay with it. But
Yeah.
yeah, so it's not even so much a light at the end of the tunnel thing for him. I mean, I'll
He's
be
just
honest,
probably very content with where he's at.
right. And
Yeah.
I mean, and he also, he got brought into my family, and I have 5 nieces and nephews. Um, my oldest niece is 15. She's actually about a month older than Camden is.
Okay.
And then after that, I have a 12-year-old nephew, a what year is it? A 10-year-old niece, a almost oh my gosh, an almost 7-year-old nephew, and my youngest niece is about 3.5. So, he got to meet all them, and it's like he gets all the like I love little kids, and he gets all of that. Because I mean, I love my nieces and nephews so much, but I love them because I can give them back.
For sure. No, there's a
So
well, and I tell Lita all the time that, like, if we waited, because I mean, I was 37 when we had Shep, right? And I was like, if we waited like 2 more years, I don't know that I we really wanted kids, right? But I was like, if we had waited any longer, I just might have been in a point in my life where I was just happy and content with the life I had made. And when you've gone that long, it just,
mhm.
yeah, I don't know. Sometimes there's just like a point of no return, I think, where you're like, I've just lived this life for so long. I'm just happy with it. I don't, like you said, like, I like my sleep. I like this. I like that. There's nothing wrong with that. So, your own parents, your own childhood, you mentioned you grew up in a rural part of Connecticut. What was your childhood like? What were your parents like? And I guess, what parts of them do you see in yourself now as a step parent?
So, uh, I love my parents very much.
Mhm.
I'm very, very close with my mother. Uh, when we were younger, my parents were always very strict. So I
Are they
am not that.
religious by chance?
Oh, yes.
Okay. Just, I mean,
Yes.
and that's not me being judgy. That's just like, I tend to see a
Oh,
correlation between the belief in religion and strictness.
yes,
Okay.
you're not wrong there.
Okay.
But the thing is, like, I had very few problems. It was my dad, not my mom, that there were issues with growing up in
Mhm.
terms of strictness. Because the weird thing was, because my mom was the one who made all the decisions, and like you asked dad if you could do something, he's like, go ask your mom. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Ask your dad for something, go ask your mom. But uh, I love my parents very, very much.
Mhm.
The past 5 or 6 years have been very, very trying. That's all I'm going to say about that. So, what I took away, I think, from my childhood, however, was despite how strict they could be at times, was their general acceptance of us as people, my sisters and I, because I have 2 younger sisters. So I'm the
Mhm.
oldest. And it was like, okay, my dad really, really, really wanted us to be like sporty. He played basketball. He played I don't know, baseball. He played all these different sports in high school and college, and he wanted us to be sporty. And he literally went so far as to tell me, if you try out for basketball and you get on the team, I will give you money. So I did that.
Right.
I tried out for the team and I got onto the team, but I didn't want to play basketball. He still had to give me money.
Right. Like,
It was like $50 or something, which in 1996 is a lot of money.
a lot of money. Yeah.
So after the fact, when I said, no, I want to sing, I want to be in theater, they were super supportive, came to every one of my concerts, every one of my shows. And um also they were very, like, there was never anything about playing favorites. My sisters and I are all very different. I was a perfectionist who, you know, if I didn't get an A, I was like freaking out about it, back in high school. My middle sister, she is a very smart person. She has been super successful in her life as an adult, but she was never good at school. But they never made her feel less about that, you know?
Uh-huh.
So, as much as I have some issues with the constrictions and whatnot that were put on us because my parents were religious and strict, whatever, they were always very good about, let's be honest, the really important things.
Hmm.
So this is something I do feel comfortable sharing. Um, Dean's youngest, Camden, is trans, and but when I first started dating Dean, he was she, and Samantha, like, Samantha is his dead name.
Hmm.
And so unfortunately my family knew him as Samantha, just from me talking to them and everything. So that's been a bit of a struggle. My parents are the only ones who have met him, and they actually were, fine with the proper, pronouns and everything in person. It's a little bit hard when I talk to them because they're just like, it's like you can just see them rolling their eyes, like,
Mm.
and like they'll say she, and that's but for me it's like, is it really worth arguing about right now? You know what I
Correct.
mean?
Yeah. Well, and
Um
but it is like a little bit infuriating if they're willing to do it
oh,
to
it's
Camden's face and then
it's
switch
well,
back
but
to.
it's a lot infuriating,
Yeah,
but
I
also
can
I'm just
imagine that
like,
puts you in a
for
really
right
hard
now,
place.
I'm just not gonna
Right.
argue about it too much. I'm glad that they were good about it in person, because I think
Right.
at this point that's what matters.
Right. You're
But
like, well, I mean, I'm not asking for a lot. Thanks for giving me that little bit, but yeah, at a later point in time, we're gonna have to cross this bridge. Um,
yeah, pretty much.
that's well, and unfortunately that's what the last like 6 years has done. I think is it's only kind of brought a lot of these I think we've all probably had people close to us who have harbored these sort of ideas or feelings. It's just they've become more magnified over the last 6 years. um
Yeah, I mean, that's one of those things where this is a little bit like getting ahead of ourselves, I think, but it's one of those things where I think I've just had a really, like, I've been a really good thing. Not to like pat myself on the back or whatever, but I mean, I didn't play Red Dead with Camden like I did with Ben,
mhm.
but when Dean and I would play Red Dead, sometimes Camden would be like in the background. And I remember there was this one thing where uh Dean kind of had like an aside conversation where he was talking about Harry Potter with Camden, and he was like, "Oh, I'm talking to my friend Tara. She's a Hufflepuff." And Camden was like, "Oh, Hufflepuffs are great." And I was like, "Ah, yay." um, but after the fact, it's like, you know, he came out as trans. Gosh, I think that we had, I think it was November 2020, actually. So we'd been dating for nearly a year, but because I'd only been around him, maybe half a dozen times, it was so easy for me to just, like, I don't think I've ever use the wrong pronouns with him.
Right.
It was just an automatic, like, okay, he's, it's harder with people that for a really
For
long time,
sure.
for sure.
Yes.
Like I've
Yeah.
certainly struggled with that, even with like my non-binary friends.
Yeah.
But with Camden, it was like, okay, nope, this is it. And he has like said several times, that he loves that I don't use the wrong pronouns and everything, or call him Samantha or Sam instead of
hmm
Camden or Cam. And which is also hard because it's like they're
There's
close,
phonetically, yeah.
but yeah, I think that in that respect, me coming into a household that used to have a Blue Lives Matter flag hanging outside of their house because the ex was a wannabe cop.
Uh-huh.
Like she went through police academy, but then worked as like a security guard or something.
Oh.
So they had like a Blue Lives Matter flag hanging outside of their house. And Camden was like, I hated it. I hated it. I hated it.
Uh-huh.
I was like, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to buy this giant "Hate Has No Home Here" sign and post it right in front of the house in the planter.
That's right. We'll get to grab them by the ballots, little placard.
Well,
put 'em in there.
our neighbors have like Black Lives Matter and like pride flags like stuck in their yard. And I was like, I like you immediately.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, it helps. It helps, for profiling purposes, 100%. Yeah, I immediately feel more comfortable with that house over there. So I guess, just hearing you talk a little bit about it. I mean, so in my house growing up, my dad was stricter than my mom, certainly. And as a product of that, I think that, my mom certainly was kind of like the, not quite the fixer, but, it was like the good cop, bad cop, certainly the good cop in that relationship. Your mom sounds like she maybe played a similar role. So let's maybe hone in on her and talk about maybe some qualities that you picked up from your mom that it sounds like, because again, you just the little bit that you're giving us about your relationship with Cam sounds like you're a great stepmom, a great parent in general. So what is it about your mom that you try to embody?
Well, I mean, let me say this, like, I feel less like Cam's stepmom and more like his friend, right?
For
And
sure. Okay.
I don't mean that in like I would never there's absolutely been times, very few of them, but there have been times where I've had to say, okay, nah, you're being an asshole here, kid. Like you got to step it back a little
Right.
bit. But, I think that my relationship with my mother and who she is as a person, just being, like I said, that sort of uh I don't even know, like, the thing is my dad was very hands off until he wasn't, and when he wasn't hands off, he was the worst. My mom was very hands on, and she could be, tough at times too, but never in the respect of like making me feel like less of a person, or
Just maybe more in like a
judging me.
micromanaging way.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think that was probably it.
Yeah.
It was more about like, do your chores, keep your room clean your bathroom, make your bed, be home at a decent time. Like you have a
It,
curfew. It's 10 or 11 o'clock
it
on
was never personal.
weekends. Yeah, and but also my mom is a very she's actually super introverted.
hmm
Like my dad is the extroverted one. Like I think I got my extroversion from him because my mom is very introverted. But she her childhood and her family history was very tough. Her mother, my grandmother, who is the only grandparent I have who has actually passed away. I still had 3 living grandparents, which is crazy. But she had a very terrible childhood. Her parents had too many kids, and they sent some of them off to foster care. My grandmother was one of them, and she had very abusive foster homes. And my grandmother carried that trauma into her parenthood. I'm not saying she was a bad parent or, a bad grandparent by any means, but there were definitely issues there. And my mom did everything she could to combat that. She saw what her childhood was, and she was the person that said, I'm going to break that wheel. And she did that with my sisters and I. And that, I think, is the biggest thing that I take away from my parents, because as much as I love them, and I do think they were great parents, there were issues that were there that didn't so much affect me as my younger sisters, who were a lot more uh rebellious than I was. I never really became rebellious. Like, by the time I was doing things my parents didn't like, I was already like
Out of the
18 and
house.
out of the
Yeah.
house.
See ya.
And so it's whatever. But my mom broke the wheel of abuse and trauma from her childhood. And I am not saying that I was abused or traumatized by any means, but my job, I think, with these kids is to break in that mini wheel of, I not just stepmom, but if I was a parent, I want to be that parent that says, put Uber and Lyft on your phone and put my credit card on it. And if you ever need to get a ride from somewhere and you can't drive, you just order yourself an Uber or Lyft on my dime. I don't care. Right.
Well, you are a parent, whether even if it feels like you're more of a friend, which we can talk about that being perhaps an advantage of being a step parent, but you are very much a parent to these children. And I think that's important to acknowledge. um I I think it's really interesting how different our my parents, I just think it sounds like our backgrounds or our upbringings were very different, but also I'm finding some of the parallels kind of uncanny, where kind of you talking about how it was like harder for your younger siblings, right? Like
Mhm.
in my upbringing, it was much harder for my two younger sisters than it was for me, and it has nothing to do with them being more rebellious, although I would say without a doubt one of my sisters was more rebellious. um it just had to do with my mom's descent into alcoholism at that point. Like when I was in high school, it wasn't as bad, it was just starting then. But then by the time they were getting into high school, it was really bad. um but also, as I've already mentioned, she was kind of the peacekeeper, the placater. She didn't make things personal, really. uh so there's a lot of similarities here, as well as like just with the stricter father as well. um I'm curious, were there any other mentors that you had growing up, or other just strong adult presence in your life that you think you've kind of drawn a little bit on upon now that you're in a position of an adult, kind of setting an example for younger kids?
Um, I mean, weirdly enough, I the church that I grew up in, while being a Baptist church, was not like this like fundamental or Southern Baptist. Because I grew up in Connecticut again. So being a Baptist in New England is weird as fuck, to be honest. Uh
I mean, that sounds so bizarre to me, but probably
yeah,
for
but
another podcast.
yeah, most of my friends were Catholic, and like they weren't
Yeah,
even like, I would invite them to like, we're just going bowling with the youth group. Like there's no preaching or anything about this, but they weren't even allowed to go with us because they were Catholic and like can't possibly be maybe exposed.
that's right.
So yeah, but the couple that ran our youth group, they were, well, there are some things, obviously, looking back now, the whole like wait until marriage, and if you give away your virtue, blah blah blah, like all of that was nonsense. They did actually have some really good points about healthy relationships, and not allowing somebody that you're in a relationship to control you. And there was a lot that they said and did. And they were also just they were in a very healthy relationship weirdly enough,
Right,
like
right.
always were, are still married. Just I'm friends with the wife on Facebook still. Like I don't agree with a lot of the things about everything that I grew up with or whatever, but they were really good role models in a lot of senses. If I just like kind of push aside the whole like,
Uh,
virtue, blah 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 bullshit.
yeah, a lot of the, I mean, like, anyway, that's essentially my stance on religion, which is if you can set aside most of it, there are some good things in there. But I mean,
But
that's
I mean, the thing is, like, they were very happy, healthy people, and they have continued even, I mean, God, I've been out of that youth group for 20 plus years,
right.
and they've continued to be happy, healthy people and have raised 3 daughters who appear to be happy, healthy people. Like, I
For
might not
sure.
agree with some of the things that they taught back then, but they were still, I still think they were good role models.
Well,
And
and
I
I,
still think
yeah,
I honestly, I can say like a lot of the reason that I was as, I mean, I want to say straight laced in high school, but because I wasn't totally straight laced, but a lot of the reason I held back from doing things that probably would have harmed me in one way or another were because of a combination, not just of my parents' strictness, but also of these people that I knew that were, showing me what it was to be in a happy, healthy relationship.
yeah, they have respect for yourself, and you know
Yes, exactly.
their opinions probably mattered and helped you have a higher self-esteem. 100%. I think that's great. And you know, what parent wouldn't want that for their kid? You know, listening to you talk about that as a parent, like I'm not a religious person, but if either of my sons found something like that, in a youth religious group, I'd be more than happy. Um,
I
we're
think
gonna,
that if we're like when it comes to religion, honestly, as I came into adulthood, I haven't, to be honest, I can't remember the last time I went to church. It's been like 6 plus years. But I did go, there was a church in my neighborhood. It was literally a block and a half from my house in Greenville. It was a Methodist church, and they were part of the Reconciling Ministries program, which is basically like, yes, we are a church, we believe in God, but we also believe that all people, all lifestyles, all sexualities, everything is, should be welcome, it. And that was really great because
yeah.
it was at a very dark time in my life back in like 2014, 2015. I was able to go there on Sunday. And again, it was a block and a half of my house. Like, I don't think I would have driven miles and miles to go
Right.
somewhere like that. But it was really nice at that point to go to a church like that. So I think that it's less about finding religion or being religious than it is about going somewhere where you can hear somebody talk about, because that's the thing, like they also, like, yeah, sure, they read verses from the Bible and they sang their, because Methodists are methodical, that's the
Yeah.
point. So it was like a lot of the things are the same things every Sunday, but the sermons were always about being accepting and being just part of a community and everything. And there are absolutely churches out there that are uh welcoming and good to that point if like one is willing to go to them. Personally, at this point in my life, I don't think I'm, you know, whatever. And Dean's kids unfortunately were raised strictly Catholic by a mother who then abandoned them. So they are super anti-religion, if not atheist, but you know.
Well, I mean, like, I think you hit on it when you were saying, like, hey, at the Methodist church you were going to, the sermons hit on, the sense of community, which is what most people are looking for, in church. Um, and there's this sense of something
Mhm.
higher than yourself, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. I think that for a lot of people, that's great. We certainly don't want to knock that here at New Dad. Um, and however you find that. But also, if you feel the need not to do that, I think that's fine too. That means you're, I think, fulfilled in the life that you're living,
Mhm.
and that's a great thing too. I do want to kind of go into some of the, some of the wonderful and unexpected that you've experienced as a step parent. So I guess just straight up, like when I think of being a step parent, it's very cinematically driven. I think of movies, and most of those
Yeah.
paint the step parent. I mean, you can go back further than movies, fairy tales, right? The evil step parent is like it's a trope. It's a fantasy
Oh,
trope.
especially the evil stepmom,
For sure.
especially the
Yes,
evil stepmom.
1,000%, right? Cinderella. So for you, like it sounds, I don't want to misrepresent things, but it sounds like you kind of hit the ground running. You had a little advantage of bio mom, taking off and leaving everyone, kind of high and dry. So, maybe there wasn't a ton of loyalty, left over in the house towards her, but, what have been the more pleasant surprises for you as a stepmom?
I mean, honestly, like kind of all of it.
Yeah.
Now granted,
All right.
I again, like you said, their biological mom, without going into detail about what
Yeah.
happened or anything, uh, when she took off, as far as I know, her connection with Ben, the oldest son, who was over 18 and therefore had no bearing on their divorce agreement, etc., was very minimal. So uh, there was very little, possibly next to no effort on her part for a long while to repair her relationship with him. And when she did try, I do feel like there was a lot of, just him kind of not wanting it, not caring, whatever.
For sure.
Uh, with Camden, there was very little effort still on her part to do anything about the relationship other than it was a really weird situation.
So
And
can I ask this? Because by all means, I know it's delicate. There's certain things we can't talk about. But do you think that, because you had mentioned they were raised in a very Catholic environment, in large part due to their mother. Um,
oh, an entire part due to their mother.
Okay, entirely due to their mother. So, I was raised in the Catholic Church. I've talked about that before on New Dad. I went to Catholic grade school, Catholic high school, and a Jesuit Catholic college. So it's something I'm 100% familiar with. Catholic guilt is practically my middle name. Uh, I'm one, so just based off all that, I can't imagine, I guess, is what I'm trying to get around to, is the bio mom being very accepting of Camden's, coming out as transgender, and so it has that been something that she's at least been open to respecting, or no?
Uh, yes.
Okay.
I mean, I she has a sibling who
Is also
is I don't I honestly don't
right.
know for sure, but she
Okay.
has a sibling who is towing some sort of line in that respect,
Perfect.
as far as
Yeah.
I know, just from what I've been told
Okay.
by Dean. So she had experience with that sort of, situation. And so I think, you know, I say that, but also I know that Camden did not come out to her. Oh
For a
gosh,
while.
it was. I knew for months before she did. Let's say
Okay.
that.
Well, that was my big fear. Just hearing that, the mom is Catholic, and knowing Catholics' view on most everything. Oops. Uh, was that he's in the situation where he can't tell his mom, and the silver lining is he has you, right? Comes into this life at this point where he's probably kind of feeling comfortable enough to come out and say this, something he's probably been aware of for a while. And who knows how long. It's probably a saving grace that maybe you came into his life when you did, because again, I think from what I've read and from the people who I know who identify as transgender, who have talked to me, as anecdotal as this is, it's something that for most of them that they've kind of been wrestling with, for a long time, if not, half of their lives, by the time that they kind of have the courage and the comfort to say that out loud. So, you kind of mentioned everything. I'm going to go out on a limb and just can I throw out two, just elect two moments as possible, like the most pleasant surprises of your time as a stepmom. Is that fair? Can I do that? Okay. Can I, so I'm going to say New Orleans, getting down late nights with Ben. And
yeah,
then
for sure.
I'm going to say that's got to be a highlight, pleasant surprise. Like, what is going on? This is awesome. I'm a stepmom. I'm drinking with Ben. He's fucking rock. He's telling me, we're bonding. And then also I'm going to say when, Camden coming out to you.
Yeah, I mean, Camden coming out to me was kind of like it was more like he had come out to Dean, and Dean said, I think we need to tell Tara. And I think it was more about that he was like, oh, yeah, of course tell Tara. Like, that he was totally immediately like, yeah, obviously Tara is going to be okay with this. That was great.
That's the pleasant surprise, is that it was just like a foregone conclusion to Camden.
Yeah. But I mean, also, then I moved out here just a few months later, and he was still he was still virtual schooling. So we sat across the desk from each other because obviously I had to turn off my video because it was freezing me or whatever. But they have this stupid office in their house. I hate this office, honestly. Like, it's this ugly, it's like I love it and hate it. I love the built-in bookcases and the built-in desk, but it's also this hideous like orange 90s color from whatever asshole built this house. But it's this big, wide, I mean, like almost 4-foot wide desk. So we sat across each other, and I would be working, my day job working, and he'd be sitting across from me doing school, and just being across from each other for literally every day, like 5 days a week.
Sure.
I mean, maybe not 8 hours, but let's say 5 to 6 hours a day was like, this is like,
it's kind of like a coworker,
Well, I mean, it's like a coworker. I don't know. It's having that person there in person. And I don't think that we would be as close as we are if it weren't for that. Not saying we wouldn't be close, but it was very much like, we're sitting, I mean, and throughout the day, like, we're, sharing random memes with each other, and like, whenever he's on a break from school or I'm on a break from work, we're having a little chat. I mean, I got to listen to his Spanish class. I don't know Spanish. I took French, but I got to listen to his Spanish class, and I just remember being like, I would love to be BFFs with your Spanish teacher freshman year because she was amazing. It was a lot of like, I definitely think that that whole virtual schooling thing, again, it's just a weird timing. Oh my gosh, like, how did this work out the way it did thing? And I feel like that's kind of the epitome of like mine and Dean's relationship and my relationship with the kids, is that it's all about timing.
Well, I mean, 1,000%. It seems like in your and Dean's case, and in the kids, as we just kind of established, especially in Camden's case, timing. But no, and like I'm listening to you explain this like scenario with you and Camden working in doing school in the same office, and I think a lot of people, even if you're, I don't know how many people listen that aren't parents,
But if you are someone who happens to be listening, you can probably relate to this as far as being in a workplace environment where I've worked with much younger people and thought like, I'm just being exposed to so much and I'm exposing them. And like kind of when you're talking about the sharing of the memes and all that, I think very relatable, very, very cool. And I think, this also kind of goes back to, one of the questions that I had next for you, which is, well established. You have a plethora of interests, whether it be pop culture or otherwise. And I'm wondering how you think that these interests have helped you make inroads with the kids, or if you, and maybe you don't feel like that was a benefit to you. So maybe talk about that a little bit.
I think it's kind of a toss up.
Yeah.
So, like I talked about how when Dean and I were just friends, I played Red Dead online with him and Ben, back when Ben was like still in high school, obviously, which is so weird to think about. And there's certainly been times where actually back in December, Dean was working like some overtime on weekends, and Kim was like, "Hey, you want to watch Harry Potter with me? I haven't watched Harry Potter in a long time. We both hate J.K. Rowling for obvious reasons, but
Right.
like, let's watch some Harry Potter. Like, we own the movies. She's not getting any money off of this."
Yeah.
So there's definitely been like some bonding because of that, but they also both have they aren't necessarily interested in the things that we are interested in. I mean, Ben stopped playing Red Dead Online, I think before Dean and I were ever even in a relationship, actually probably several months or longer before
Right.
that. Camden has this obsession with Minecraft and these like Minecraft streamers and watches them just all the time. And he's played a few videos for us, and one of them was funny. One.
Okay. One.
The rest is just a bunch of children screaming into their mics about Minecraft, which I don't understand.
Have you showed him the Folkwise episode where they play Minecraft?
I have not. I think I
Oh,
should do that.
You need to do that.
I watched some Folkwise episodes, but I might have skipped that one because
There's
honestly,
only one.
I must have skipped that one honestly because it said Minecraft,
Yeah.
and I was like, no, I've had enough of Minecraft.
Well, I can feel that.
And I know that Camden likes Doctor Who.
Okay.
I personally have never watched it. Don't hate. I've watched like 2 episodes. I just never could get into it.
Okay.
A lot of the stuff that we watched, Camden's like, I will say he introduced me to Encanto, like
Ooh. Okay.
in terms of I wanted to watch it, but I just had kind of like put it off. And then he was like, I watched Encanto. I like it. Can we watch it together? And I was like, yes. And literally right before I came on to record this podcast, I was telling him about how I woke up in the middle of the night the other night and couldn't get We Can't Talk About Bruno out of my head.
Yes.
And then we started singing the songs together. So, there's little things like that. But they do have very different interests from us. I mean, we watch Star Wars stuff, and Camden's like, there's too many things I don't know. I'm going upstairs. So
is there anything that you've introduced them to that they've really gotten into? You've talked about what they've introduced you to.
Not really. We did some months ago, Dean and I had somehow discovered this really bad movie on Amazon Prime. I think it's called Astro Zombies. That's what it's called. Astro Zombies M3 Cloned. It's a terrible, terrible, terrible movie. I mean, hilariously, like, we'll never not laugh your ass off watching it. I've seen it like 5 times now. So we were watching, Dean and I randomly were like, we're gonna watch a bad movie, and we picked it, and the kids randomly came downstairs when we were maybe 20 minutes in.
What's the elevator pitch for this movie?
So it's these zombies that come from another planet who are somehow also dressed in like sweats with like PlayStation logos on their
All right.
shirt.
All right.
And there's
I'm here for that.
there's a quote unquote sexy scientist who is like, I'm gonna
Yes.
like control make a way to control these zombies. And then there's like the guy,
I
there's like
love sexy scientists.
the brother of the guy that originally found these zombies is like a drunk, and he comes to warn everybody about them, but he's a drunk, so they turn him away. And then for some reason I'm sorry, trigger warning, but he kills himself. It's but it I couldn't possibly describe to you the whole plot of this movie because it is so bad. It makes zero sense, but it actually went off. It was free on Amazon Prime, and then it stopped being free. And I was like, it's $2.99. I'm buying this so that I can always show it to my friends because it's horrible. And the guy that created it has actually created like a whole ton of movies that all kind of combine, like all of their storylines combine into each other.
Oh, so he's
So there's
created a universe.
yeah,
Nice.
but I don't want to call it a universe because all separately they don't
Okay.
make sense, and it doesn't make any sense that they come
O-
together.
Okay.
So it's like a universe but an anti-universe.
Yeah.
I don't know, it's
Oh,
very bad. It's
okay.
so, but hilariously, like, please watch it bad.
So, oh, so perhaps I'm just like we we may have to do a crossover episode and have you come on the movie club,
Yeah, I
and
mean,
we may have to cover it.
uh it it would be a thing,
It would
I'll
be a
be
thing.
honest,
Okay.
because
Okay.
this movie is like, just watch it.
All right.
And
Yeah.
you'll
Okay.
probably have to
Let's
pay $2.99 on Amazon Prime, but
nothing. Hey, we've paid more for less, I'm sure. Um, that is so. I need to play Sigmund Freud for a second, just for one
Mhm,
moment here. Um, you wrote a book about zombies.
mhm.
I know that you also have a live stream about The Walking Dead.
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah, and now you're talking about. Do you think that your obsession with zombies comes from your parents' religious obsession with a guy that came back from the dead? Is it
No.
possible? No. Okay.
No. I mean, because here's the thing.
Okay.
We started for the bitching dead is what is
Yeah,
what that
yes.
webcast is
Yeah.
called. We started that because the website, I don't really write for them anymore because I don't have time,
Mhm.
but I do still do like webcasts and stuff with them, and that being one of them. It was me, like myself and my friends Fareed and Becca, who we were all just like constantly complaining about The Walking Dead together. And then we're like, why don't we just start a webcast where we
Yeah.
complain about The Walking Dead? And then it became also Fear the Walking Dead, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, I'm gonna bring this interview back from the dead in terms of back to being a step parent. Uh, I'm wondering if you had to identify, if there's a step parent that's listening to this and thinking like, yo, I have not had it this easy. Because obviously everyone's situation's different, and
Mhm.
I'm sure there's a lot of step parents who come into this role and they're not accepted quite as easily as you were, and the transition is not as smooth. um there's certain things you have no control over, right? In the whole thing, but what things that you've done, that you're conscious of, do you think have led to the success that you've you know had at this point?
I mean, I think that just being accepting of the kids as they are without so and again, I've been lucky in that Dean has continued to take the sort of telling them what to do role. I don't want to put it any worse than that,
Right.
like reminding them to do their chores and stuff like that.
Like he doesn't
Eventually,
put you in a position to have to be the disciplinarian, basically.
right, right. That said, I mean, if it really came down to it and I had to, I would. I
Right.
haven't. And a lot of that, like, listen, I know I've been really freaking lucky. Like, I've been
Yeah.
lucky that these are two generally really good kids, you know, that I don't have to worry about. I mean, I don't have to worry about a lot of disciplinarian stuff. I think my biggest issue is like they don't help around the house.
It's
I
like
think,
most kids, right? I mean,
well,
no
I
joke.
mean, that's not the way I was raised.
Okay.
And uh, I think that with them, it's a lot of what I have gathered from things that happened when Dean's relationship with his ex ended was that neither one of them was a disciplinarian in that
Gotcha.
respect, in terms of like if things weren't done, she just did them and then she resented Dean for
Not helping.
not even not helping, but just not also like not being like
Not
not
disciplining the kids,
like,
so they
yeah,
did
not
it.
disciplining the kids even though she never asked him to do that, or like
Yeah.
she just did things, and she just did things.
Gotcha.
Like
Yeah.
it's great that they know to do their own laundry and stuff, but what about the dishes? What about sweeping downstairs? What about, you know, just the basic things that it's like we all live in this home and we all should have a part in keeping it clean
Mhm.
and livable, etc. And I came, I've had to kind of dial back my idea of clean
Oh
because
yeah. Yeah. Well, oh my God. I wish you could have toddlers for a day.
nope,
Cause then it
nope,
would
nope.
I know you've already said like that's not your thing, you don't want it, but I wish you could just be like, because it's all about just, having that it will help you appreciate probably teens, because oh my God. Yeah. That
Yeah.
I
Nope,
can't
no
I
thanks.
can't even I can't even tell you the stuff that I clean up on any given day and where I clean it out of and what I'm cleaning. I mean, it's just it's depressing. It's
Oh, I
depressing.
mean, I think that their mom used to clean their bathroom for them. And I don't know that for sure, but it's become like a thing because Ben is the only one that cleans their bathroom. And I have seen how disgusting it gets just from walking by it. And I'm just like, I ain't touching that shit. That ain't my job.
Yeah.
That ain't a
Well,
common area, man. Have fun with that.
yeah. Well, I feel like boys are also a little bit, a little more lax in that area in
Oh,
that
it only gets
area.
clean when Ben's girlfriend is coming to stay.
For
So
sure. Yeah, that sounds right. Well, that's why it's like, that sounds like, most of the guys that I, grew up with and went to college with. So it sounds pretty typical. I don't want to generalize, but that sounds pretty typical. Um, and then I guess my last question before we go on to some of the challenges you face, which it doesn't sound like, there's been a lot, but I'm sure there are some. Um, is What's been your proudest moment as a stepmom?
um, I mean, honestly, probably just uh accepting them for who they are.
Yeah.
I mean, particularly Camden. Um, Again, not that there were issues really, as I mean, as far as we know, with him coming out to his biological mom, but um I really think that just, and also I think that I'm kind of the what's the word for it? Like Dean is his dad, right? And Dean can be uh he's a fucking amazing dad. But it's also like this is my dad and I'm frustrated with him or whatever. And I can be kind of the, middle person between the
Mhm.
two of them. Like kind
Like a
of saying,
conscientious objector kind of.
yeah, like
Yeah.
kind of saying like, yes, you're right. Like your dad didn't handle this as well as he could or should have, but also here's where I think,
You have to see it from your dad's side.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Like I think I've been okay with that. I think in the entire time I've been here, little over a year, there's been like 2 times that Cam has been like upset with me about, you know, being that middle person, but he's never like even if he got upset with me, he has always like walked it back like very soon after that. So I mean I think I think, I hope that I'm good at this thing
Well,
of being like, like
it sounds like you're
I'm
doing
not the
pretty great. Yeah.
disciplinarian. I'm not the disciplinarian, but also, and I might not agree exactly with how your dad handled this, but also, you left the dishes sitting in the sink for 3 days because your one chore is to empty the dishwasher. Like,
Yeah.
ugh.
I mean, I don't know if that was yeah, I don't who did it, but I can relate because I've been guilty of not emptying the dishwasher myself. And I think that's a nice transition into a question I have for you is, have you had the "you're not my real mom" moment with any of the kids? Cam,
No.
you had mentioned you guys have had a couple moments, but okay, so they've never been like, "You're not my real mom."
No, because it has been, very clear from day one, like, I'm
Yeah,
Tara.
yeah. I'm not your
I'm your
mom.
stepmom, and, like, we're going to treat this like a separate relationship. Like, it's a friendship, it's, it's a guardianship, but it's not a like, and again, a lot of this is it's only been a little over a year, so I haven't gotten into the whole, like, having to be the disciplinarian. I'm dreading the fact that eventually I will probably have to be that person when it comes to, like, helping out around the house and stuff. Because like, I can't put that on Dean for the rest of our lives together.
Yeah. Well,
And I'm not sure when that tide breaks, to be honest, but, I mean, yeah, there's not been a you're not I've never expected them to call me mom,
right.
and, uh,
Well,
I
not
mean
even that you would, but sometimes, I think again, my idea of it is very based on movies that I've seen,
yeah.
right? And so there's always this moment where the stepmom has to do what you're saying is like, you haven't had to, but it's coming down the road. You're gonna have to be a disciplinarian, or you're gonna have to be the person who puts their foot down.
Yeah.
And then it's
Not
that,
looking forward to that.
yeah, and then it's like, you're not. And here's the silver lining, and we've hit this a couple times. Cam's 15. Yes, that means you have at least 3 years. So it's 100% going to happen. You're going to have to play that role. You're going to wear those shoes. You're going to, but it's not like you're in my shoes where I have a 3.5-year-old and a 2-year-old, and they're already hooligans. I mean, and I need to have an episode. I was just thinking about this today as I'm like looking down the list of episodes. I just need to have an episode of like fucked up shit that Shep is into right now. My 3.5-year-old son, the things that he likes are so disturbing to me. As far as
Dude, hello. Yeah, I did the Minecraft thing, the
oh,
screaming teenagers,
it's
and
crazy.
also when I go home and I was hanging out with my like 3.5-year-old niece a lot the last time I was home. and she's watching these videos, and it's literally just people playing with toys of like Peppa
Yes.
Pig and stuff. And I'm like, what
Yes.
are you watching? What is this?
Do you want to? Okay, so I've come to two depressing realities. One is my kid Shep, my oldest son, is maybe going to be a psycho. So I mean, I don't know if anyone out there is familiar with Five Nights with Freddy. Okay, so he loves these things. These little action, or I call them action figures. He got all these little toys. That's what he's most obsessed with now. And then this other, it's a YouTube channel. I don't actually know if it's called Piggy, but it's these two kids, and they're chased around their house by I assume this has to be, I'm praying it's their parents, but they wear these like weird outfits, and they have these piggy masks and like play bats. It's so weird, but the one thing that actually legitimizes it or justifies it in my mind is that they have merchandise. Like there's toys for all this stuff. So Shep, of course, is into the weirdest toys in the world. That's what he wants. That's what he has. That's what he's obsessed with right now. So we're gonna have like an episode of just like fucked up shit Shep's into right now. But yeah, it's just like he's wild. I don't even know where I was going with that original statement, but
Well, just like your kids are into weird shit that you're just like, what the fuck, man?
Yeah, it is. He's a wild dude. He's a wild dude. And like I said, I've just I think where I was starting off with is just like the fact that I have, I'm 16 years in with Solo and another, 12 in with Shep before I can even remotely justify kicking him out of the house.
I mean, I've played Cards Against Humanity with these children, so
so like they're
a lot.
Yeah. Well,
like,
and
too much.
I mean, at some point,
like all they want to play.
Yeah, offline, I want to know some of the topics of conversation you and Ben hit in New Orleans, because I imagine it got deep. I imagine it got deep and weird and hopefully great. So yeah, I had a couple other questions about the challenges, but it was also I didn't know a ton of the backstory about Biomom, and then after learning it kind of answers a lot of those, and I don't think we can really even.
I mean, I can touch on it. They're loyal to their father. Okay.
Right.
Like they're loyal to their father. I think that has been one of the biggest things that has made this easy for me, is that both of them at separate times in separate ways, several times, have made comments to their dad about how they see how happy we are together, how affectionate we are, how much we enjoy each other, just being around each other, whatever. That they never experienced that. They never viewed
Right.
they never saw that with him and their biological mother. So I think that's also a big part of them accepting me, is that whatever issues they might have with me now, in the past, in the future, I don't know. Which as far as I know, neither of them have any major issues with me, but a big part of their acceptance of me is that there was a lot of bad stuff that happened with their parents, and they see that Dean is very happy with me, and that's what matters to them.
Do they ever tease you guys about your affection?
Oh, for sure, yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, probably more Camden than Ben. He's always like,
sure.
"Ew, you guys are gross," because he's around more. Like Ben, like he works weird hours, and also when he's not home, when he is home, he's like with his girlfriend sometimes, or just whatever. But like, yeah, Camden's always like, "Ew, you guys are gross," but it's all in like good fun, like obviously we're never inappropriate around the children. I think back to the first time I ever visited. No, it was the second time. I think it was the second time. So the first time I visited Dean, we stayed in a hotel because I was like, I'm not. This is like it was a mile and a half away, and I was like, I'm not. I've never met your kids before. I'm not staying because it was also he had to go to work one of the days I was here, and I was like, I'm not going to sit in your house like with your kids. This is weird. But the second time I came and visited, I think we were watching a movie or something, and I like sat on his lap and was like making out with him, and Camden came downstairs, and I was immediately like, whoosh, no, that didn't happen. Like, no, that did not happen. You didn't just catch us doing this. So
Straight back to high school days.
Yeah. But so yeah, there's a little bit of teasing, but it's all
For sure.
All in good fun.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, Tara, that's all I really had for you. Again, thank you for coming on. This was awesome. I really appreciate your time. And for all of you who are listening, go to our YouTube channel or go to our Instagram account and give us a subscribe, give us a follow. You can see pictures of Tara Lynne and her beautiful husband, Dean. I have a little bit of a man crush on Dean. Just again, I'm an admirer from afar. Very handsome man. You can tell him I said that. You guys can see them cosplay from the video game that brought them together and breathes love into life and inspired the location of their wedding. If you listen to the podcast, you are familiar with all that. Thank you for listening. Thank you for tuning in.
Popcast, take us away.